Welcome to the Wild Sacred Journey podcast. I'm your host, Kate Powell. In a world where humans who feel vibrant, whole, and fully alive seem to be increasingly rare, where burnout and brokenness seem to be increasingly the norm, both in individuals and our larger ecosystems, it seems worth exploring how did we get here? And more importantly, what perspectives or what cultural practices or what spiritual, ancestral, or animist wisdom processes might help us stay true to the spark and rhythm of our aliveness on this wild, heartbreaking, but ultimately rare and precious life. Thank you for being here. May these conversations help us to stay human in the face of dehumanizing forces. May they nourish our wild, tender hearts, and may they plant seeds which flourish into a more regenerative and vibrant future. Hey, Kate here with Wild Sacred Journey, coming to you in the dark. Windy, slightly rainy. Well, the wind's died down now, but yeah, dark of the day before New Year's Eve of this new moon, which is actually called the black moon. It's the second new moon in the month, so those are called black moons. And so there's something about, this idea of the new moon is sort of the time when you plant seeds, right? The energy of the new moon this is the dark soil that we stick some seeds in, and then we see what germinates. And so we get to go through that cycle, monthly, basically, with each lunar cycle. New moon being when we plant the seeds, full moon being when we see what's germinated, when we start to harvest what's happening, the waxing moon phase being when we're tending to the seeds that we've planted, the waning moon phase, the part after the full moon, being when we sort of integrate, review, basically take in the feedback, right? Because the idea here is that everything's kind of this co-creative process. So yes, we are taking an active role in seeding what we want and then tending that. But then we're also seeing there's still mystery, right? And mystery plays a part in all of this. So we can plant the seed, we can tend the seed, and yet there's a certain amount of what fruits is to some extent out of our control. It is influenced by the things, the actions that we take, the way we're being, the frequency we're holding, but we can't control every outcome of it. And so the waning moon phase is when we kind of look at, okay, what worked, what didn't, what was the response to what we thought we wanted? If we got what we wanted, did it turn out it was what we wanted? What was the response to that? And so through that, we're co-creating with the mystery. And so I think that's a really important thing to remember, because there's a lot of energy right now at this black new moon, the second new moon of the month, right at the new year, where, again, new year being an arbitrary thing. For me personally, it actually feels better to kind of celebrate more the solstices, the equinoxes, and kind of these more nature-based times, rather than kind of this arbitrary, hey, look, it went from December 31st to January 1st, which is a Gregorian calendar, which is fine, but it's not necessarily connected with something that our bodies attune to rhythmically in the same way that the natural seasons we do. But regardless, there's a lot of rhetoric around the new year of kind of this taking stock, reviewing, this whole kind of, again, on a bigger scale. So kind of like the idea of, the tides being one time frame of cycle, and then each wave being another cycle, right? So it's kind of like that. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. So we've got the lunar cycles, which are cycles where we can constantly be looking at manifestation, intention, all of that. And then we have these larger cycles of kind of the annual cycles, right? The solar cycles. And so, but we kind of have the two conjoining right now, which builds a lot of energy for us around this idea of intentions and seeding. What are we seeding, right? And so I think that there's something important to talk to here as well. First off, reminder that there's nothing, because there's a lot of like new year, new me, better me, blah, blah, blah kind of rhetoric that can get tossed around a lot at this time of year. So first off, a reminder that there's nothing you can do or not do that will make you any more or less worthy of love. So I just want to affirm your belonging and your humanity in this moment with that reminder, right? We can make mistakes, sure. We can hurt and be hurt, of course, and that's not ideal. And of course, we should always aim for less of that to the best of our ability. And even in those moments, we still are worthy and deserving of our own humanity, our own aliveness, and the love and invitation back to our humanity, to our aliveness, to love that our community, hopefully, in an ideal world, would be able to mirror back to us and invite us back into and call us back with. So we're starting from that premise. That said, we aren't here to just passively experience life. We're here to make things with our hands. We're here to build relationships and love. We're here to do things, right? So we're here to allow aliveness to express itself through us, which can mean setting intentions. It can mean manifesting certain things, right? Our desires, our hungers are something that is pointing us towards our medicine, our service, our offering, whatever we want to call it. If we are working with our desires and our hungers in a good way, if we're not letting them kind of drive us. And so this is where, to me, it feels important to actually bring a spiritual component into, and a mindful component into our intentions, our New Year's intentions, our new moon intentions and practices. Because without some sort of guiding, orienting compass, it becomes really easy in our sort of modern, quote unquote, culture, our modern forgetting, actually, and disconnect. It becomes really easy for our manifestations and our intentions to become really disconnected from something that seeks to serve culture, that seeks to serve aliveness. And we can become really materialistic, or we can become really selfish and self-centered, or we can kind of start to think, okay, who do I want to be? And we start to like try and shape this identity, this mask or this identity that then we're trying to squeeze ourselves into because we think it's who we should be, or we think it's who we want to be, or we think it's some version of us that would get us what we want or get us what we need, keep us safe. So we can very easily start using our hungers and our desires, or be used by them, to satisfy things that are not guided by love, not guided by higher values. And, it's not inherently a terrible thing, but compounded over time and with large numbers of people, we end up with a world like we're in today. So this is where, I think it's really helpful to sort of start to look for more of these animist ancestral ways to to connect with the idea of intentions and manifestation, because otherwise we kind of end up with this very sort of capitalist, but couched in spiritual terms, like, let's manifest, manifest your highest self. But it's still very kind of materially driven. It's usually about creating, like manifesting lots of money or manifesting the car you want or the, whatever, like the quote unquote life you want. But again, in the sense that like isn't culturally grounded in anything communal, anything animist, anything that affirms your belonging in the world. Or you kind of end up with this non-attachment, right? Oh, we can't, it's not about manifestation. It's about not being attached to the results, right? Which again, okay, but oftentimes non-attachment can be a way of avoiding responsibility. Or not taking action, or not living and expressing ourselves and our soul in some way in the world. So, we want to walk the line here. And that's a tricky line. A lot of people, I know for me, I've felt caught. I know other people, often feel caught between like, well, I'm supposed to manifest, but I'm also supposed to be not attached. And like, how does that work? Right. And so, all of this connects in obviously with burnout and purpose anxiety, because if we're trying to kind of live some identity from the outside in, if we're trying to control some outcome because we're trying to have it mean something about who we are, or trying to make some sort of meaning out of life based on what we are manifesting in the world, right? That's exhausting. If we're yo-yoing back and forth between trying to make things happen, but then trying to be not attached, that can get exhausting. So what do we do instead? A lot of people I've noticed seem to be on this thing of having a word, a theme for the year. And I like that. I've played around with that myself. But there's something about words that still kind of keep us in our sort of modern brains, where words can have a lot of different, oftentimes non-conscious, whether sub or unconscious, non-conscious baggage or meaning kind of coupled along behind them. So we say a word and suddenly there's like all this stuff that kind of piles up behind it. And again, nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's just something to kind of notice, because it's not always, I think words, it's kind of hard sometimes to actually see some of those non-conscious things and patterns. So we may not even know that those kind of get activated just by us saying the word. Also, I find that when I'm really struggling, when the emotions are really high, or I'm really grappling with something, that words kind of don't do it for me. Like it reaches a point where words don't have a powerful enough charge to really help me stay oriented in these more intense moments. And they keep me in sort of that more rational, logical, and even more modern, literate and literal kind of part of my brain. So part of why I've actually started working more with tarot cards for the year is because there's something about the images of the tarot cards that have a lot of different layers of meaning, and some of them don't reveal themselves to me right away. Some of them reveal themselves to me like throughout the course of the year. My understanding of the card deepens throughout the course of the year as I'm growing and changing with it. But also there's something about the image that shifts me into more of that symbolic, archetypal part of my brain, which connects then more with spirit, more with the quote unquote other world, or the unseen world, the subtle world. And also connects me a little bit more with kind of these more ancestral, animist ways of perceiving and knowing And there's something about the images too. When I look at the images, and this is partly because I'm kind of an embodiment person. So even when I'm sensing things visually, I'm also usually feeling them in my body. But when I look at the images of the cards, usually there's some kind of feeling tone, so I can look at a card and I can say, okay, what would this feel like in my body? Like if I were embodying this card, the energy of this card, what would that feel like? Ooh, interesting. That feels really uncomfortable. Or, oh, that feels really powerful. Or, oh, that would feel good, but something needs to shift here. Oh, that feels really unfamiliar to me. Or, oh, that feels really familiar to me. And maybe that's the thing I need to shift, So when I invite the image to sort of interact with me and my body, suddenly then I have something where it's like I actually notice if I'm slipping into a pattern that the cards are encouraging me to shift, right? One of my quote unquote stop card, right? And it's like sometimes logically I'm like getting hijacked in the moment. I'm falling into a pattern that's not so conscious, but the feeling tone of the card I might recognize. Oh my gosh, wait, that's what that card looks like, feels like, right? And oh wow, I think I'm falling into that right now. Okay, so how do I get out of here? I don't know. But what was the start card, or what was the continue card, or what's the main theme card, right? And then I kind of start to try and feel that feeling tone. So if I were to be one of those cards right now, how would I respond differently, or how would I interact differently? And so then I actually have some sort of orienting principle. I have some sort of signpost that even in challenging moments helps keep me kind of trying different things. And so in that way, then I'm actively participating, but I'm not attached to a specific outcome other than my own way of being. So I'm not attached to any specific outcomes in the world around me or in my relationships, but I am actively working towards a specific frequency, a specific way of being, which then I get feedback from the world around me. And then I get to see how I respond. Am I responding more as my stop card? Am I responding as my start card? And so through that, I start to kind of be able to navigate sort of these ebbs and flows. And for me, that's become a really powerful practice. And it's definitely allowed me to shift some really, big patterns. There's been just massive amounts of growth for me in the last couple of years. And I really do think some of it is this ritual that I've kind of stumbled upon, inherited, been somehow guided into, created, whatever, all of the above. So anyway, I just offer that as an example, and you can kind of either try that yourself literally, or maybe that inspires you to do something else. But, I think we have to kind of, that whole idea, wherever you go, there you are. And so, in all these moments, we kind of have to be asking ourselves, what am I, what culture am I embodying right now? What culture am I perpetuating? What am I feeding? Am I feeding more of this kind of burnout supporting, purpose anxiety inducing, materialistic, not rooted in anything like external to internal kind of culture? Or am I feeding a more meaningful, maybe more spirit-led, more respectful, more participatory and relational way of growing, creating, expressing, and being in the world? And so this is just another opportunity to kind of play around with that. So and if that speaks to you and you think you could use some support, I do actually have Insight 2025. I offer tarot readings. I don't just do it for myself. I also offer it to others. And so that's available for purchase until January 16th. And there's a couple different options there at different price points. and with different levels of support. And in the offer, you get a PDF where I talk you through some of how you can start to engage with the cards. So it's not a live reading. It's done by PDF. It's delivered via email. And you get a PDF that has a picture of the card or cards that I drew for you, and some ways I sort of can, talk you through kind of ways you might want to engage with the cards yourself. And then also some like journaling prompts or inquiries. You get a voice note with a channeled kind of message from me, what I'm sensing the cards might be trying to tell you, at least in this moment. And then also some embodiment practices that could maybe help you kind of engage with the cards as well. And then, so you get all of that via email. And also included is then a sort of retrospective, a live on Zoom retrospective call in December of 2025, kind of looking back over the year and sort of tracking how your cards, how you worked with your cards throughout the year, and what, if anything, has shifted and what still feels incomplete, and celebrating and reviewing and refining and, all of that good stuff. So anyway, if that speaks to you at all, I'd love to support you in that way. But whether that speaks to you or not, Happy New Year. Happy New Moon. And may we find better ways to relate and express and engage and create in the world. Ways that, and by better, I mean more nourishing ways that nourish us and also nourish the world. And that's one of my big hopes for 2025. So, I'll leave it there. Again, as always, feel free to share if you think somebody else might be into this idea too, maybe an accountability buddy. And I'll see you next time.